Hi, how's everybody doing? This is Mickey. Well, the season is upon us. We have Halloween, and we're lucky this year that we're going to have a full moon on Halloween. So I thought I would do a short video on how to do a composite of a moon and a photograph or foreground that you really like. Now, this can be done in one shot, but typically it's in the early morning or late evening, twilight, where you have some light of the moon and the sun together that you can do it in one shot. But when you have such dynamic contrast in the dark of night with a bright lit city or a bright lit background, it's really kind of hard to do, and that's why we'll do it with two pictures. Now, we have all the time, at least I do, use exposure bracketing or exposure stacking to where we can get just the right exposure, almost an HDR look, and we have focus stacking to where we can get a wide range of focus into a scene that we couldn't do it normally. And I like to call this time stacking. So what I'm doing, I'm in the same location, I'm just taking a picture at a different time. I take a picture earlier in the evening to get a good shot of the city, and then I wait for the moon to rise, and I use a 500mm lens, and I take a picture of the moon. And I make sure both of those photographs are in correct exposure and color, and then I can blend them together and get a perfect picture of what a full moon looks like over the main street in my city. To start out with, we're going to take our pictures, our foreground and our moon picture, and we're going to run them through Lightroom and get them to just the right color and exposure that we want them to be. We're going to blend these photographs together in Photoshop, and we can do further changes in color and exposure after we have blended them. I find it just works out a little better. The first thing we want to do once we have our photographs of our background and our moon, you need to crop the moon to a 1:1 ratio. So we're going to click on the crop tool, we're going to choose 1:1 as our ratio, and we're going to bring the crop down to where the black edges are just barely touching or barely away from the edge of the moon. So we'll drag the corner here and we'll get it just about like that. And it'll make more sense to you when we see it in the blend mode in Photoshop. But once you have it cropped, you hit the enter key, and now we get just the moon as our photograph. Now don't worry about the size. That'll be taken care of when we do the blend in Photoshop. The next thing we want to do is open up both of these photographs in Photoshop. So highlight one by clicking on it, hold your Command or Control key down, and click on the other one to where they're both highlighted. Then you want to right click and you want to choose Edit in, Open as Layers in Photoshop. What will happen now is that Photoshop will launch and it will load both of these in onto the same file as in separate layers. Now the important thing to do when you do get these layers in place is to make sure the moon is in the top layer. And you can see, because we can see it shining through, we know it's in the top layer. If we were to move it to the bottom layer, then it's not going to shine through, and it's going to make our job infinitely more difficult to get the moon to show up. So if it's not in the right position, just grab it and move it up, or grab your background and move it down. Either way, the moon ends up on top. The next thing you want to do is click on Control or Command if you're on a PC, T. Control T. I'm sorry. Make sure you have highlighted the moon layer before you do that Command T. So we'll do a Command or Control T, and it brings up our transpose tool around the moon. Now if we click on the moon, we can drag it into the position that we want it to be in. We'll put it about right here. Then if we grab the little box in the corner and move inward, we can resize it to the size we knew it was when we took the photograph had we got the moon in the picture at the same time. So we'll say it's right about there. Now you want to click the little checkbox up at the top, and that puts it into the photograph. Now we need to change the blend mode, and in case you have never used these before, they do certain things with light and dark and let some things shine through and some not. If we were to zoom in on the picture here, you can see that our moon, we can see the area that we cropped around, and that's why we did it. We don't want a lot of black space around the moon. To make this black space go away, we're going to change our blend mode right here to screen. And when we do that, it will only let the light of the moon shine through. And now we have a good moon in our sky space. The next thing I like to do is to change the opacity down to about 80 to 85%. And yes, this does lighten the moon a little bit, but it also gives the edge a more of a 3D effect. Instead of a stark change, you can see you have a shadow fall off around the edges, and that gives a little more a realistic look. Now, we can bring the brightness back when we move back into Lightroom and get it fixed just the way we want. Now I just want to jump in here real quick and say that there might be some persons that have taken the picture with the moon already in it. Of course, it's all blown out. And the best thing to do instead of trying to put a moon over this is to take the moon out first. And when you're in Photoshop, if you go to the removal tool and you give yourself about twice the diameter of the object you're trying to remove and click once, it'll take that moon away, and you can go ahead and start putting in the moon that you had taken under correct exposure to make the picture look good. So here we have our moon in place. We're pretty much done in Photoshop, so we're going to go up to File and we're going to hit Save. By hitting Save, that goes ahead and saves the file as a TIFF file and moves it back into Lightroom. And here it is right here. You can see it's right next to, or right in between our two main photographs. So now at this point, if there's anything you wanted to do in Lightroom, even if you wanted to maybe brighten up the moon a little bit more, if you go to your masking tool and click on Object and then just highlight just a little bit of the moon in the center, you don't have to go too close to the edges. It'll select the entire moon, as you can see right there. And if you wanted to make it a little brighter, you could do that. You could add to the shadows. You could give it a little more clarity. And of course, if you wanted to add color to it, you could go to color and give it a little yellow. Oops, sorry, right here, color, and add a little yellow to make it look more like a early moon. But it's just that simple. So I hope this helps out. I hope you guys have fun on Halloween. Be safe and take those pictures that you get and give it a spooky moon the night after Halloween. I'll talk to you all soon.